How's it going? Welcome back to another great video, my wonderful wise ones. Today we are going to be discussing MindsEye in further detail because I think that the discussion around this game is so interesting and I just wanted to further analyze it and discuss what I think the MindsEye reviews are going to be saying about this and what the industry is going to say about this when this game actually finally drops. So, if you haven't checked out my early MindsEye review, do go check out that video. I just released it, and I'm going to kind of batch them together. But today, I just want to, quickly examine MindsEye and what this game actually is, and what the reviews will actually be for this game. So, like with any big AAA game that comes out, it usually has a lot of hype around it, it has a lot of marketing around it. MindsEye basically did none of that. It had a botched preview event. It hasn't really been advertising itself that much. It hasn't really allowed content creators to talk about it much. And I just want to stress that this is basically where the industry is going right now with AAA games, okay? Where it's not so much about the creative vision anymore. It's not so much about creating a finished product. It's more about the idea of what this game is. That's actually what sells, okay? That's how you get publishers and shareholders and all that kind of stuff interested in your product. And for some reason, now with games taking so long to make and tools like Unreal Engine 5 being released, for game developers with basically, zero optimization in them because no one really understands how to utilize it properly, that's how we are getting in this current state of, modern day gaming, as I like to call it, the modern day gaming slop.
If gamers see how broken shit Cyberpunk is before launch, they will cancel their pre-orders and plunge Poland into 1,000-year darkness.
What if we tell game reviewers they have to show gameplay footage we provide? Then gamers will think game is perfect and keep pre-orders.
You mean steal hundreds of millions of dollars from our fans?
Nein, Gott, bitte, nein! 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 Nein!
But there's been so many instances recently where, massive, big, companies and developers that you think that you could trust, like Bethesda, for example, the people behind Redfall, recently with the Saints Row game as well. There's just been tons of examples of games being released completely broken, adding content later. And honestly, I'm just kind of tired of this bullshit. I'm tired of, the grift that we see many content creators doing, where they only highlight one example or one opinion, take things out of context to build negativity about a game that actually is good, for example. There's been lots of instances like that where games get undeserved hate. And then the other thing is true where, people just praise and glaze games because, obviously they get paid for it. And then it becomes even more muddied when we get, the industry that basically is just, all around marketing and showing off actual false gameplay, not the real thing, and then just saying they're going to fix it later, especially when games take so long to make. So MindsEye is a perfect case study for this kind of, modern day gaming slop. Is MindsEye a scam? That depends heavily on how you define a scam. If you're saying that MindsEye has been misrepresented with its, gameplay and stuff like that, then perhaps you could argue that MindsEye is a scam. But honestly, it's more just deception, okay? And I think, we just have to have an honest discussion about this and how we can actually fix the industry moving forward. So now, in this MindsEye reviews discussion, I just quickly want to highlight what I think the reviews for MindsEye will be. I think this is going to get massively dumped on, okay? I mean, absolutely destroyed, so much to the point where it won't even have a chance to come back. And I hope it does have a redemption arc. I hope added content saves this game with updates and patches. Of course, there will be a day one patch to fix some of the performance issues that I highlighted in my early review, but still, I don't think this is going to get a chance to shine because a lot of the people working on this are already jumping ship, and that's already a telltale sign that this game, might just have been, a kind of financial sink, as it were. but also just for discussion around this game. I think most people aren't going to try and look at this fairly. They're going to dump on it because that's a popular thing to do right now for, you know, a game that's being perceived negatively. And you have to understand how the human perception and the kind of tribal mind works, okay? And that's with anything, with, you know, gaming analysis, you know, any type of media, politics, and, you know, that's just how, you know, human society works. And honestly, I find it quite disgusting when we should be coming together to try and make games better and the things that we love and care about better. The only thing that I will say that might save MindsEye is the fact that basically the idea for this game, which is quite interesting actually, is the open world itself is basically bare bones. And it's basically, you know, going to be, you know, single player missions that kind of let you navigate the open world, but not actually, you know, it's not going to be an open world game, if that makes any sense. So what they're trying to do with this game, you know, it's kind of a it sounds creative, but also it sounds lazy at the same time, depending on how you look at it. But basically they want the players to create the world itself. They want people to come in with a map editor and stuff like that and change, you know, the actual open world itself and add levels and content to this. So it's kind of a sandbox experience. But the thing is, if the game itself has bad reputation to begin with, and then, you know, it doesn't even play well to begin with, there's no chance that that's ever going to happen. And that could have easily been a scapegoat by the developers because they knew they didn't want to put all of the hard work into it. They just wanted to get the story out there, show off the shiny cutscenes and all that kind of stuff, and then that's it. So that's honestly my prediction for MindsEye reviews and what people will be saying about the game. So this is what I wanted to showcase right now. So this is the MindsEye map editor. At the moment, I think that this feature is only coming out on PC on release. But as you can see here, you know, you can literally place down, you know, actual buildings, enemies, you know, all the assets basically that you would find in the game. And, you know, it is quite comprehensive, you know, not like modding to a Bethesda standard, but it is pretty comprehensive that you can make your own levels, not necessarily like generate a whole new world, but you can fill in this world with levels that people can play with. And I think that was basically what they were going for. So then, you know, there would be like this endless content. But like I said, that's only going to work if it's actually fun gameplay wise. And I think most people are going to ignore this feature straight away. Of course, it could be interesting, you know, you could make things like, you know, mini races and stuff like that. But the fact is, if the gameplay itself is not good, and if people just bomb this on release with the MindsEye reviews, which I'm pretty sure it will happen, there's no chance that this will ever happen. This is a feature that will get buried day one. So honestly, where does this leave us? What is, you know, gonna happen with MindsEye? Well, I do believe that the MindsEye reviews are just, like I said, it's going to be shat on, and that's mostly because of, you know, popularity and for that juicy ad revenue, instead of being honest and saying that, you know, it does have some good bones, but obviously as a game it's quite terrible, and I do think that's a fair assessment. But honestly, I just wanted to make this video because, you know, saying MindsEye is a scam or something like that, which I'm sure a lot of people are going to say, that doesn't really help the industry, okay? You know, we can't support games like this, that's for sure. We need to call them out and be critical, but at the same time, I feel like within the gaming industry, all nuance has been lost. We need to, you know, come together and, you know, have a fair, objective take when it comes to games, call out, you know, things that have just become a standard in the gaming industry, like showing off false gameplay, marketing false gameplay, and getting away with it. That never used to be a thing, that never used to be allowed. You know, having DLC, you know, in a season pass for single player games, having games broken on release and then only 3 years later they're good. You know, now Cyberpunk is considered a masterpiece, and yeah, it is a great game, but do you know how long it took to get here? That should never be allowed to happen. And the fact is, that's become a norm in the gaming industry now. That's become accepted, and we need to start pulling away from that idea and, you know, basically holding these companies more accountable, because it's the same thing with anything. If you let corporations, companies own your very life, if we let these, you know, companies basically get away with this kind of shit, basically you're signaling to them. Basically what you're doing is signaling to these companies that we will accept anything, that our standards have fallen so low, and that is how the consumer in this, hyper-capitalist society that we live in, which necessarily isn't always a good thing, that's how, these companies can just get away with further and further distrust and, just manipulation. And slowly, over time, we'll just be clapping our hands that we, received like a bare minimum shitty experience that, just functions, kind of. And like I said, that's not just with gaming, that's with anything in life. The individual, the consumer needs to understand that they actually have the power, and if more and more people start calling it out, calling attention to this kind of stuff and unifying as a community like we used to, then we can actually get high quality, products and experiences that are worth experiencing instead of this kind of modern day gaming slop. So that's my opinion. Let me know what you think down below in the comments, my wise ones. Subscribe, like I said, if you are new, I would highly appreciate it. And just leave me your thoughts down below in the comments. And I'll be seeing you in the next video. Have a great day. Peace out. And think for yourself, goddammit.